Thursday. It's 4 o'clock. As always, we are joined by the great Mike Mayock. You can hear him on the Believe in Eagles podcast with Lee Mayock. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us once again.
My pleasure. How you guys doing?
You know, we're doing all right.
What's up, Mike?
We're doing all right. Now, you as a tapesman, you watch the tape, you love going through the tape. Going through the Eagles-Bears tape must have been one of the worst experiences of the season for you. I can't imagine you liked what you saw on either side.
That's a good way to lead, Spike, because that's kind of how I'm feeling.
Yep.
And, you know, I started watching tape when I was 8 years old with my dad, the high school coach. And you know, that's where I developed my love of it and appreciation for it. Usually it gives you the answers you need. And at this point, you know, we've been talking about the offense all season long. What's wrong? Who's accountable? How much is the coach? How much is Jalen? What about the run game? What about, you know, we're trying to figure all that out. And I took a step back from the offensive tape this week, and I kind of looking at my notes. I'm going, okay, how many miscommunications were there? You know, I mean, think about I think people have been talking about the play that looked like a slant to Smith. And it really, I mean, you know, Jalen was throwing hitch. He was running slant. It was, depending on what you read on the zero coverage, it was something that has to be figured out between these guys throughout training camp, not week 14 of the season. What are you doing against zero with that look? And sometimes, you know, it's on the fly, but that's okay. Every team in the league handles those decisions post-snap on the fly. You know, there was a play with A.J. Brown on a crossing route, abruptly stopped. I think it was a good throw, but there was another Eagle coming in his direction with another defender, and I think he thought there was going to be a collision. And, you know, there's Saquon Barkley in the flat, gets hit with the ball because he hasn't turned around yet. There's the two-point conversion. There's all these what I would call either miscommunications or disconnects are happening in week 13. And most of them should be ironed out 10 weeks ago. And I think what plays into it, Spike, is, you know, some of the pre-snap penalties, which, again, as a coach's son, drive me up a wall. And, you know, the Eagles have 20 false start penalties, which are preventable. There should be less than half of that amount, right? 20 false start penalties, and a wide receiver has 4 of them.
I was going to say, it's not just the offensive line. It's the receivers, too.
Dude, my dad is rolling over in his grave. That was his number one rule for wideouts. You can never have a pre-snap penalty because all you got to do is stand there at the end of the line of scrimmage and look at the football. You can never have a false start. So he's got 4 of them. The left tackle has 3. The left guard has 3. That's 10 of the 20. And I'm not trying to rip them, but I'm trying to – you mentioned my frustration, and a lot of it is stuff that I think should be cleaned up way before now. Now, you're going into a critical game on Monday night, and we're not talking about matchups against the Chargers and how to take advantage of their corners. What we're talking about is pre-snap stuff that should have been taken care of weeks, if not months ago, and it does drive me up a wall.
I would say the other thing on top of it that makes it, that sort of exacerbates the frustration, I would imagine, is this is mostly the same players, it's the same head coach, and it's a different offensive coordinator, but it's a guy who's been in the building for 4 years. And you would just think, yeah, you would work it out in training camp, but you would also think that the stuff that you're talking about figuring out on the fly, you would think, well, these guys must have a rhythm of that sort of communication where that would almost be, you know, some of these guys, they should know each other like the back of each other's hands. Mm-hmm. And you just, you know, we do a show with Jordan Mailata every Monday night.
Yep.
And you almost don't even know what to ask in those certain things because you know they're practicing and you would assume they're trying. But when it's things like that, it's not, to your point, it's not about the other team playing better. It's not even about a physical disadvantage. It's about how is that even happening at this point? And I don't even know like how to diagnose it. And I would imagine you're in the same position.
Yeah, I think there should be continuity from a year ago with players and coaches. I think some of what happened last year was this magical run with the run game, And every time the Eagles got in a situation they needed something, Saquon would rip off another 50-yard touchdown, which is a great deodorant. You know, it can kind of cleanse all kinds of things when you're just gashing people in the run game. And now the Eagles aren't doing that. There's no gashing in the run game. So every little thing that goes wrong gets studied under a microscope. You know, and knuckleheads like me watch the tape, and Baldy and all our guys, and you know, why would this happen? Why did this happen? And it gets, I don't want to say blown out of proportion, because at this point it shouldn't even be happening. But I think it does point an arrow in the direction of, okay, you're 13 weeks into this season. You came out of the bye week a year ago at 2-2, and you went in one direction. You're coming out of the bye week right now, and it looks like an entirely different direction with an offense that's averaging 15 points a game. And I don't even know what to tell you that they need to do other than to play cleanly. You know, we talked about turnovers, and the only thing saving them early in the season was they won the turnover battle every week. Now, the last 2 weeks they've turned it over 4 times, which is half of the turnovers on the season, because they only have 8. So if they're not razor sharp with the turnover piece, and they're sloppy with communications and disconnects and penalties, then they're not going to win football games. And then when you throw 281 yards allowed in the rush game on top of all of that, and a disparity of 87 offensive snaps versus 51, now you got a mess.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I've been locked in this week at Mike. I know I'm not ignoring what the offensive struggles have been, but it's almost repetitive and redundant when we talk about this offense the last month. What I was shocked at, and really over the last week, is the defense's performance. You know, we kind of excused it against the Cowboys for whatever reason, but Friday against the Bears, to get the ball ran on them the way that they have, I haven't seen that around here in a long time. I think you almost got to go back almost 15, 20 years to where something like that even remotely happened, with 2 backs having that type of field day.
Well, 05 was the last time it happened.
So 20 years, yeah, that the last time something like this happened. I was surprised at that more than anything. We found out today Jalen Carter is going to get some time off. His shoulders aren't correct or aren't right. But what else did you see with that defense, particularly up front with that front 7, that we just could not get off blocks and stop Chicago's run game last week?
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I thought it was, for the defense, an embarrassing tape, and so atypical for a Vic Fangio coach team. So what I saw, I couldn't wait to watch the tape, because I did the game on the radio, and so I was there. And I couldn't believe all the cutback stuff. And especially coming out of a zone scheme where they're climbing to the second level, there was nobody backside. So to try to oversimplify, every team in the league runs outside zone, and they tag it with a bootleg that comes off that. So you have to be aware of those two things. Some teams then will tag a jet sweep with a wideout coming in motion and time it up so that it's kind of perimeter control. They show you that they can run that jet sweep the other way, so that you can't over pursue from the backside. And then what Chicago did, which I thought was pretty cool if you're a Bears fan, is they had a tight end playing fullback a bunch of times, and he would flash to the flat the opposite way of the run. And it took the Eagles linebacker with him, okay, because they run bootleg off that look. So Nakobe Dean is flashing with the tight end right out of the hole that they're running into, and the defensive end is coming upfield expecting bootleg. So they seal off the front side, cut back, and the linebacker and the defensive end that would be assigned to that run typically are gone. Not even an issue. Don't even have to block them. And I thought that was kind of cool from a scheme perspective for Chicago, taking advantage of something that Philly does. And I think it's something that Jimmy Harbaugh is going to be looking at and going, you know, and on top of the fact, Ike, and that's schematically. That was one piece.
That's not even the physical part of it. Yeah, that's not even the physical part of it.
Exactly, Ike, and that's what I was about to get into, because I think you hit it on the head. And if you start from inside out, the news on Carter is intriguing to me because I have all over my notes that he was trying to play finesse football. That he was trying to swim over instead of holding point, leaving his gap. And when a defensive tackle leaves his gap, it's a problem.
Yep.
And what it means is the linebacker is going to get overwhelmed. So I thought he played a little bit of a finesse game. I thought Jordan Davis, out of all of them, hung in there the most, against those double teams. But still, he was getting moved. The other two defensive tackles, Ajomo and Young, were just getting blasted out of the hole on double team. And what happens, and Ike knows this better than anybody, the way teams double team a defensive tackle is they get movement, and then one of them separates to go up to the linebacker. And the Bears did it all day long, and Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean were stuck or ran around more often.
Yeah.
It was kind of disappointing to watch the runarounds.
Yep.
So I'm not used to seeing the Eagles play runaround football, and they did. They couldn't set an edge, and I thought the defensive backs tackling collectively was the worst of the season. So when you add it all up, Ike, it was an embarrassing tape.
Yeah.
It's so hard to ask you about the Chargers game, and I think you intimated this because it really just comes down to, if this team is playing like this, how could you think that they're going to beat anybody? Like either they're going to play better and they're going to win games, or they're going to keep playing like this and the rest of the season is going to be kaput. It just must be hard to sort of forecast what kind of game we're going to see on Monday night, given the way that the Eagles have played.
Yeah, I mean, my son was asking me the other day what I thought about the Bears game. I said, Mike, I have no idea because I don't know which team's showing up.
Right.
Especially on offense. And I hate week 13 or 14, whatever we're in. I hate to kind of be dramatic about it, but Spike, you've been kind of hinting at this all season long. Like, is it going to be a repeat of 23 or is it going to be a repeat of 24? When are they going up or down? What's going to happen? And I'm afraid we're kind of at that point where I think this is a gut check. I think if you've ever been in a locker room, this is the week where coaches challenge you as men, and they close the door and they don't let the message out, and they just, they tell you and they take blame for it also, right? But at the end of the day, the defense has to come out and play like the Eagles' defense is used to playing. And offensively, I can't even begin to tell you what we're going to see.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, I expected. I appreciate the detail. I expected the tone.
Yeah.
The tone was exactly spot on. But I do appreciate the detail, and hopefully we have some better tape to talk to you about next week. Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
Thanks, fellas.
There he is, the great Mike Mayock.